Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's session, Dealership of the Future. Our speakers today are Dave Johnson, Eric Johnson, Don Miller, and Tim Berman, who are part of our data and innovation team. Please note that you're all muted right now, but you're welcome to submit your questions via the chat window at any time during the presentation. The team will be holding all questions and answering them at the end. With that, I can pass the mic over to you guys to get started.
Great. Thanks, Caitlin. Is this working? Am I live? Am I on? Okay.
You are great.
All right, great. Thanks so much. Well, thank you very much. Hello to all of our dealers and our attendees here, everyone out there joining us. Really appreciate you being here at the coveted lunch hour to share your time with us. Of course, I guess it's not lunch for everyone. It's not my lunch time. I'm in the mountain states. So, but we appreciate you taking the time to spend with us. And what we're going to do here is go through some data. We covered this. I'll introduce our team, but we recently did a presentation, and the whole concept was that we've gone to the future and come back from the future, and here's what you dealers should be taking a look at and considering as we move into the next year. And we had this cool background, and there's our team and our time traveling outfits. This was at the MTD concert for those of you that were there. If you were there, please do hang on though, because we have added some additional pieces of information that we didn't report previously that you might find interesting. Some of it you'll have seen, but we're trying to make this as compelling and informative as possible to make sure that you get the most use out of your time. And again, we really appreciate you spending this time with us and investing in your dealership and in your business. So we want to make it worth your while. So it was this great idea, this concept of behold the future, and we're back from the future, and hey, it's 2022, and so not a giant leap into the future, but a little leap into what you might be considering next year. So pretty clever, I get it. Um, all right, so let's do some quick introductions for our data solutions team. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Dave Johnson. I have the great pleasure of working with this team to create innovative reports and services for our dealers and OEMs. I've been with Constellation for a little over 2 years now, and I absolutely love it. I love this market. I love our dealers. I love everything about it. As for my background, I started working with dealer management software about 25 years ago. Did CDK Global. It was Lightspeed at the time, and I was just picking up the phone as a customer support rep, basically helping out dealers with issues, dealers just like you. And in my time there, I started working with training and did installs and was a salesperson for a while. So I did a little bit of everything. But the most rewarding role I played was that as our OEM relations manager. And I worked closely with all the manufacturers in power sports and developed a lot of different programs that help dealers streamline their processes, improve profitability, visibility on market share. I have a lot of experience in power sports, marine, and RV. Unfortunately, a lot of that translates to OPE, but there's always more to learn. And I just want to say right off the bat that I have not had a chance because of all the craziness in the last year to get into dealerships like I would really like to do. So please, for our dealers that are attending right now, if you have a question, throw it out. Let us know. Hopefully, Caitlin, you can see that because I can just see the presentation right now. But interrupt us. We're going to show a lot of data. If you have questions about it, this is an informal thing. We did this big presentation for 300 or 400 dealers, and that was fun, but you don't get a lot of feedback. So in this format, we'd love to hear what you have to say. We're here to answer any questions. There's always something to be learned from you. So please just give us a shout out. Um, Moving along, Eric Johnson is our data architect and is literally an award-winning partnership builder. He's a three-time winner of the American Honda Premier Partner Award. That award is by nomination only. Honda employees nominate their best vendors, and Eric has won that 3 years. We did it 3 years in a row, and that was a very big deal from Power Sports. We're the only Power Sports winner of that. He's currently developing advanced solutions for the collection of market share data that will provide better visibility on the entire industry. Eric's created the only centralized database for this kind of information, for transactional information. And this is not only going to provide unique view into our business, but it'll also serve our dealers with better integration points, quicker time to integrate more APIs and integration points for our dealers, and basically it's going to help all of us out by helping us bring better solutions for dealers to the market quicker. Eric got his dealership wings as the parts and then service manager for a very successful power sports dealership before becoming the director of development at CDK Lightspeed, where I met him. And all of you probably already know Tim Berman. He was with AJ during the keynote address. He was talking about Target CRM and lead management, which is his favorite subject. Aside from different restaurants, he's kind of a foodie. Tim is just a great guy. Practically grew up in a dealership. His family owned two successful locations in Texas, where Tim worked in every department before eventually growing into the principal position. And as a dealer, Tim was that dealer that was constantly, at the shows, at the dealer meetings, going up to AJ and management and saying, "Hey, you know what dealers would really like? You know what we should do? You know what we should think about?" And I think AJ finally had enough of that, and he said, "Tim, why don't you just work here for us, and you can develop those solutions, and you can help us bring them to market." And so that's what Tim's doing, where he's now our innovation manager. In charge of Target CRM. If you haven't seen anything about this, I'm sure you will. Fantastic product, and we're really glad to have Tim with us and part of our data solutions team. And also, we have Don Miller, who's our senior consultant. He's got a 30-year history of working with hundreds of dealers across the nation. Don spent his first decade in a in dealership management, wearing many hats. He was a general manager, F&I manager, a sales manager, and a trainer with several major new car dealerships. For the last 20 years, Don has been providing consulting, training, analytical services to dealers across the nation. And during that time, he has developed some really impressive custom tools and reports that have helped dealers spot trends and stay ahead of the curve. Don's an expert at using data to analyze and solve industry problems. He is constantly visiting dealerships in several markets: RV, marine, tractor, OPE, and this gives him a very unique insight on the KPIs across these markets. And we want to bring the relevant ones to our family here. Okay. So that being said, brings me to the dirt report, which should look familiar to many of you. It has KPIs in every department. It's industry specific to OPI. We update this monthly. And the whole idea is that if you can measure it, you can improve it. Or if you can't monitor it, you can't measure it. So you have to be looking at your data. So we hope that those of you that have access to the dirt report right now are really looking at it. If you're not, we'd like to know why, and we'd like to know about improvements we can make to it. But this is really the dealer's best tool for tracking your performance in comparison to a national average. And what this report offers is that national average. You can see how you're performing in comparison to all of the dealers that are feeding data into the warehouse, and I'll cover that in just a second. But if your business is down, this report can help you figure out where and why. And if your business is going great, well, this report can help you figure out how to make the most of it and how to make improvements to that, because there's always some area that can do better. And this will help you find where that is. So no matter where you're at in the industry, you have to find some line on the horizon to know where you're headed. And this report is exactly that. So, although all of us come from different backgrounds, we're all together working now for Constellation. We are combining our industry knowledge to create the best reports and services, helping you measure your business. And speaking of that combined background and experience that we have, and I'm sure all of you will recognize. I'll turn on my little laser pointer here. All of you will recognize our brands, Ideal, C Systems, and Charter. But did you also know that Constellation owns the largest dealer management systems, most widely used dealer management systems in marine and RV and tractor and agriculture? Today we'll even use some of that data from these other business units to present and kind of give you some benchmarks that'll be interesting for our businesses. So, market data, what's the source? We feel it's really important to understand where we are getting this data from in order to understand its full meaning and value. So, over half of our dealers combined at, 32, a little over 3,000 between the different platforms. Here's the ideal dealers, and all the ideal dealers are feeding their data into the warehouse right now. And we have the C Systems Infinity dealers that are also feeding in. And then we have plans for the remaining members and different platforms to also feed into information into the warehouse nightly right now. So you can see that we have almost half or actually a little more than half of our dealers that are feeding in their data now with plans to get the rest in the next year. And actually, the Aspen dealers, we're pulling data from Aspen dealers now into the warehouse, but it needs to be really QA'd and gone through with a fine tooth comb before we're ever going to publish anything like that. We really take pride in the integrity of our data and what we're presenting, so we have some work to do before we start including those in the reports that we offer. And speaking of that, our market share reports, if you want to see what we're publishing out to the industry, we'd love to have you sign up. You can go to the Constellation homepage. Right there, you can click on it and sign up for the reports. We update these monthly. We'll send them directly to you. You'll get to see things like the monthly market share data. We have, a couple hundred subscribers to this right now. So we update this every month to kind of look at the industry. We actually started doing it during COVID, but have thought that it was so valuable and had so much good feedback on it that we've kept going with it. So we update this on a monthly basis. You can get a look at the industry year over year over the last 3 years. And we even break it down to a regional view so you can see what's going on in your particular neck of the woods. And we even publish some of this data in a couple different magazines. You'll see our same store sales published in outdoor power equipment. Again, we update this on a monthly basis and we give this a little more of a breakdown by department. I mean, you can see that there's, a pretty big increase in the service department already. And we think that, obviously that's dealers that are pivoting to profit centers to start looking at service as ways to make money. So we can see that happening. So that's a real high level look at what we do with data and some of where we publish it. And now to walk you through the actual data and some of the new studies that we put together, I'm going to turn things over to Eric Johnson to kind of take us through some interesting things that we found in the data and that we hope you find insightful and help you with your business. And that's a cue for you, Eric.
You're muted. You're muted, Eric.
You're muted.
Thank you so much.
There we go.
Yeah, let's take a look at some of this data. Go ahead to the next slide, Dave.
Sure.
And what we're going to do is just take a look at some of our monthly OPE data that we publish in the industry. And again, Dave has showed you how you can get that update every month. But we've also taken that data and extrapolated out and gone back a little farther. Since 2020 was kind of an odd year, in a lot of our data, we're going to go back to 2019, and that's what you're seeing here as a baseline. So this is the monthly sales across all those dealerships. And also, I'm just going to mention up front here that we're doing kind of a same store analysis here, which means that we're throwing out dealers that we didn't have at the beginning of 2019 or at the end of, at the end of 2021, and anyone who missed any significant portion in between there. So if we add a layer on there, we're going to add 2020 data in there. And you can see the growth monthly that happened over 2019 there. And then if we add the months in 2021, you'll see what's happening in 2021 for the months that are applicable there. And we've continued strong growth, but I think the interesting thing here is to watch what happened over 2019. And we have some growth numbers that we'll layer over the top of that. So if we add this gold line in, this is 2021 growth over each month of 2020. And since 2020 was an odd year, we're also going to do a 2021 comparison with 2019. And that is this red line. So you can see that even if we ignore 2020, which is an odd year, we're still having significant growth in most every month over 2019. Dealers that are learning how to work in the new economy are doing really well. So we mentioned that we have data also from the RV and the marine industry and the equipment industries. This is just an example of that same data from the RV industry, and you'll see some of the same patterns. We like kind of comparing month to month to see what's happening. So there's 2019 RV, 2020, 2021. You can see the end of 2020 was just this crazy spike of RV sales. And again, this gold line is 2021 over 2020, and the red line is 2021 over 2019. So still significant growth in some months, 50 to 75% growth over a normal year. So
Yeah, pretty amazing
excellent stuff going on there.
Yeah.
As we went through 2020, like Dave said, we released data weekly, and we kind of were tracking what was happening with the pandemic. That was kind of at the forefront of everyone's mind. But what we also did towards the end of 2020 is did some analysis of other factors that came into play in 2020. Since we all were kind of focused on COVID, we didn't necessarily pay attention to these unless you were in an area where they were affected. But 2020 was a record year for billion-dollar plus disasters.
Yeah.
And this is just looking at one quarter, the third quarter of 2020, when there were 4 major hurricanes, 3 major tropical storms, wildfires burning in the West Coast, and you can see those on the map there. And then the great Iowa derecho in August. We have, our ideal main offices are in Iowa, and so we kind of felt that personally. We didn't, when this came in 2020, we didn't have a parts locator or equipment locator up yet. But I recall our general manager calling me after when this derecho hit and just said, "Hey, can you find us any generators within 100 miles of the city in Iowa? We need to get our business back online so we can serve our customers." And so we used our own data to find those generators and find the OPE dealers that we could rely on to get our business back online. So that's a use that I guess we're not going to talk much about the locators here today.
Oh, sorry. We can get into it, but more
it's
down
cool. But we will talk a little bit about that. But the equipment locator will be out next year anyway, so you could do the same thing in your own business if you have those kind of problems.
Absolutely.
Anyway, going on from disasters, so we can also zero in on different areas of the country, and obviously each of those disasters that we talked about, they were they affected wide areas, but they were the greatest effect was found in individual states and in regions, and we can track what happened in each of those situations in an individual state or in a region around the disaster to see how that affected business. We all kind of understand that OPE dealers selling a ton of chainsaws and generators has a big impact on business, but this is we're able to see those spikes and actually analyze that in a scientific way. So revenue is up 32% in some of those areas. So another thing we've done with the data is tried to drill down to individual transactions and what's happened through the pandemic and through the supply chain problems that we've had over the last year. So this study is looking at an individual chainsaw model. So just one model of one brand of chainsaw. It's in the top 10 sellers. So you would recognize the brand and model if you're familiar with chainsaws at all. But let's just, first we track the price of that chainsaw over this 18-month period. And you can see that priced varied dramatically from $170 to $195. And if we layer in the other factors that were affecting that price, we look at the average number of units sold. We see that spiked in around May of 2020 when everybody had to stay home and buy chainsaws, so they had something to do. And then we layer in the inventory values. So these are an average inventory per dealer, an average sales per dealer of that model. And you can see that towards the end there's several places where the dealers are selling more units per month than they have in stock.
Yeah.
And that creates a situation that you're probably all too familiar with, where you're pre-selling or you're taking a deposit on items that are coming in any day now. And anyway, uncomfortable situation, but you can see what that does to pricing.
Yeah, and I've got my own another hypothesis on this since we talked
Okay,
about it
let's hear it.
because my thing was, well, the price is going to go up obviously when the inventory goes down, but you can see like that by that May number that that's not the case at all, that it goes shooting up there. And I was thinking about it like as we were joking around that, okay, dad cancels Disneyland, and he's like, okay, I'm going to go buy a chainsaw and I'll be out in the backyard so he doesn't have to hear the family about it. And I thought it's probably, I bet, more chainsaws than anything else, because who's going to go up and bother dad when he's got a chainsaw, right? So I think that we should look at this, but yeah, that's definitely where he was like, I've got bad news, and if you guys need me, I'll be outside cutting wood for the next couple
So
months.
there's
So just
some kind of therapy going on here then, right?
right, well, or at least they just don't want to bug dad because he's got a chainsaw, so they'll probably leave him alone about that. So it was just a thought I had.
All right.
Yeah,
Love it. So we took the same kind of idea over to the zero turn industry, and we go to the next slide.
yeah,
In this case, we're looking at an entire brand of zero turns. So it's not quite zeroing in on an individual model or price, but it's saying for the whole brand, what does that availability look like over that same time frame? And so because we're looking at an entire brand, we've got this pricing going from $4,100 to $5,500. That doesn't necessarily mean that one model grew that much in price, but it likely means that towards the end of 2021, the mix of models that they were selling probably skewed to more commercial interests or prosumer models from the just consumer products. Yeah, go ahead, Dave. And then we'll
sure.
layer in the average number of units sold for this one brand, and that average from 1.7 a month up to a little over 8 a month. And then if we layer in the inventory, you can see that this particular brand kept dealers in inventory pretty well up through the middle of 2021. And then it started falling off. So everybody's had some issues through this, and some
Yeah.
manufacturers way more than others.
Yeah. And then this kind of dovetailed into our next one, right? Which is the accessories and everything that were sold
Yeah.
with those. Yeah.
So what we've done is that we've analyzed dealer behavior and just said, okay, so if they don't have whole goods to sell, what are they selling? And we've taken a lot of look at how their service departments are doing. This study here is looking at the parts and accessories that are sold with whole good. So we know that successful dealerships that do well are selling a lot of accessories and parts along with every whole good that they sell. And so this would be an analysis you could look at. So this is my top 10 list, lending from David Letterman. This is my top 9 list, actually. We took all of those accessories and grouped them into different segments, and these are the segments that they landed in. And this is by the percentage of revenue. If we look at all of the accessories and parts that are sold with whole goods, this is the percentage of revenue that's made off of each of these categories. And we've done this for 2019 and 2021. Again, kind of ignoring 2020 since it was an odd year. So handheld attachments comes in at number 9, and that's actually gone down. I'm not sure why that is, and we didn't talk about any hypothesis for this, but this has gone down from 4% to 1%. And then number 8 is lawnmower wheels and tires. This has gone up from 0.4% to 1.3% of the dealer's revenue. And this, we did look at some of the individual instances, and there's some interesting things happening here. There's a lot of commercial mowers that are going out with dual rear wheels, and if the model didn't come with it, they're ordering a kit that they add onto it. The other interesting thing that we see is a lot of landscapers or commercial players are adding twills or what do I want to say, non-pneumatic tires on so that they don't have any tire problems if they run over nails and stuff. So the next issue is side-by-side accessories, the next group. And this is an important thing, and Dave and I learned this firsthand in the power sports industry. the whole reason that a power sports dealer sells a side-by-side or a UTV is so that they can sell all the accessories that go with it. That's maybe to a lesser extent in the work area, but it's an important segment of a dealer's business. And if you sell a brand of side-by-sides and you don't have a whole bunch of accessories that you're offering your customers, this is a great thing to look at. It's a great revenue opportunity. And that has stayed the same from 2019 to 2021. And it's probably a little more prevalent in the recreation industry, but it's still a big deal even in our industry. Next, not a big surprise, but would be mulch kits, up in 2021. And Dave had a theory that this was, what were you saying, Dave?
Well, it's the you know, we can look at it, and there's a lot of promotions out there from a couple of different manufacturers that have been really successful, and there's some that aren't. There are some manufacturers, if we look at the attachment, what we call the attachment rate at the time of sale, that there's virtually nothing sold with the units, and then some, a couple in particular, it's clear that they have a promotional plan going on to drive dealers to sell mulch kits at the time of sale because they're selling a ton of them.
Yeah. Anyway, mulch
Yeah.
kits, number 6.
Yeah.
Number 5 is an interesting one. It's snow plows and accessories. And you guys in Florida and Texas may want to ignore this one, although the Texas dealers may have needed some last year. But we found that a lot of our dealers, especially during the off season, make a lot of money off of selling snow plows. And this includes the smaller plows that fit on side-by-sides and ATVs and even lawnmowers, but also full-size snow plows that go onto trucks. All the brands that you think about, Boss and Western and all those, OPE dealers are making significant sales of these products along with their with the other things that they're selling, and you can see that up in 2021 significantly.
Oops. I'm forcing you forward, Eric.
Yeah, it's good. But, so April Wintermeyer's commenting from the group that Stihl, Husqvarna, Gravely, and Bad Boy have all been pushing accessory sales. So we see this happening. The manufacturers definitely understand it, and especially where they may have troubles actually getting the whole goods to you, that having accessories to sell is a way to make up revenue.
Yeah.
And the next is batteries and chargers, and we've talked a little bit about the battery cells, especially in the handheld group. And that's why we're seeing the major increase in 2021 over 2019, is that battery products are making are an increasing percentage of all handheld sales every year over the last few years. And I think we'll see that continuing to increase. So just having those batteries and chargers on hand, if you're selling electric products, to make sure that that they're offered a battery or charger, extra batteries or chargers. And that brings us to other issue, that's consumables that go with the product that you're selling, whether it's a chain or string trimmer line or blades for a lawnmower. Are you asking your customers when they go out with that, hey, would you like a spare set of blades of that? I mean, this is something that McDonald's
mentality,
back in the 70s. Do you want fries of that? Well, it's completely, you don't have to be a pushy salesman just to say, hey, you just bought a string trimmer. Would you like an extra spool of line with that?
No, that's a good thing. That's not being a pushy salesman at all. It's reminding somebody, hey, oh yeah, you know what, I do want that. Thanks for reminding me. Yeah.
Anyway, those consumables make up 5% of the sales that happen at the same time as the Wholegoods sale.
Yeah.
Number 2 would be grass collection. No big surprise here. A lot of dealers and a lot of manufacturers make a big deal of this and actually make their name doing a good job at grass collection. And number 1 would be lawnmower attachments that don't fall into those other categories. That's a huge portion of things. So anyway, I think the takeaway here for dealers is to look at each of those categories and say, am I selling a significant amount of these at the time that the whole good is sold? And if not, look what you can do promotional wise or training your salesmen just on what's out there and what's available.
Absolutely. Absolutely, yeah. And not only that, but kind of dovetailing into our next study, here's the things that you should be selling. We've had a lot of questions on, well, what days should I be selling it? Which kind of prompted this next study.
Yeah, so we did a little study for someone in the business on what days OPE dealers are open. Dave and I come from the power sports industry. We spent many years over there, and there's a predominant
Yeah, Monday's never.
behavior over there
Yeah,
to be closed on Monday and be open on Saturday and Sunday. Not
yeah,
necessarily the case in OPE, although that happens to a certain extent. Before I get into these other days, so these days where there's a major pattern happening, but the number one day for OPE dealers is Friday, and I didn't put that on here because
pretty consistent.
it's across
Yeah,
the board.
yeah.
Every dealer does really well on Friday. Number two, curiously enough, is Tuesday.
Hmm,
So
interesting.
anyway, let's take a look at
Yeah,
Sunday. So OPE dealers, most of them are closed on Sundays, but about 5% of them are open on Sunday. Hasn't changed much from 2019 to 2021.
no,
And the corollary there is Monday. If they're closed on Monday, I think they're open on Sunday and vice versa. So 95% of the dealers open on Monday, and that hasn't changed much over the last couple of years. The interesting thing out of this study really is Saturday. And if we look at that, in 2019, 80% of the OPE dealers, a little over 80%, were open on Saturday. And that's gone up to 86% in 2021. We think that
yeah,
dealers are pivoting to serve their customers better. And, as customers stay home during the pandemic and maybe they want to get out on a Saturday where you may not see a business from a landscaper or a pro, you might see residential consumers come out on a Saturday and need your services. So it's
yeah.
a consideration to take into account.
Yeah, and if there's dealers that want to post whether you're open or not on any of these days, or if you've made any changes, we'd love to have that
Oh
feedback for the
yeah,
group too. Yeah,
we would welcome
yeah,
comments on those
yeah,
accessories. I mean, what have you found to be your number one accessory group
yeah, yeah.
to sell with?
And another interesting study that kind of dovetails onto this again is which you know we've looked at these things that we weren't really looking at before, the days of the week. Well, what about the labor rates? What about the things that we can affect? What does that currently look like?
Well, someone just posted that they're open 7 days a week. I wonder how
Yeah,
many dealers are actually open 7 days. I didn't do that analysis. That'd be
yeah.
interesting to look at.
Oh, write that down.
So next, we were looking at, again, since some of the Wholegoods dealers had some trouble selling, a lot of them have taken up some of that slack by providing service and a lot of work order revenue. So we looked at the average labor rates across the nation, and for OPE dealers, that average nationwide is $89 an hour. You guys can post if you're above or below that, or whatever
Yeah,
you find interesting. But if we go to the power sports and the tractor industry, it's about $10 more than that. And if we go to the trailer industry, it's about 110. Dealers
yeah,
posting they're open 6 days a week, closed on Sunday, for the
yeah,
first time in their 30-year history. So this is interesting in and of itself, just to say maybe it's time to take a look at your labor rate. Maybe take a look at what people are getting around you. I wouldn't necessarily base your labor rate off of what other people are charging,
no,
but
yeah,
it may be time to consider increasing it.
yeah,
The
for
next
sure.
part of the study is the average labor rate increase over 2019. And for OPE dealers, 2019 to 2021, this is just 3%. I think that's probably less than inflation for those 2 years, especially for 2021. But power sports dealers were 4%, just slightly better. Tractor and trailer were 6% over 2019, and marine dealers were 9% over.
Yeah,
So I think it's worth taking a look at, especially with the recent economy and the massive inflation. It's getting harder and harder to find technicians. Some of you may be paying more to find really good technicians. I think it's time to look at your retail labor rate and just consider if you can increase it. Sometimes it's worth just doing an experiment and setting it at a different rate and see what the feedback is.
Yeah.
You may get a ton of negative feedback. You might get none.
Yeah.
People are paying a lot more for the whole goods and all of the parts. So it may be a time when you can get more for your service work too.
Yeah.
Someone just posted St. Louis $95 labor rate. That's like, the middle of the country and pretty much middle of the road average for the country.
Yeah. And speaking of increases, it kind of takes us to price books and updates.
Someone else posted they just went up 30% on their labor rate for the last year.
Wow.
And no complaints.
And got no complaints. Yeah.
No complaints. Yeah. That's surprising. But
that's what we
some
hear.
of us have just let it sit for 10 years and we've kept that same rate. When we weren't in an inflationary period, maybe that was a viable plan. But right now, I think you're going to need to take a look at it more often.
Yeah.
So the next thing we looked at was the same thing for parts prices. And what we're looking at is price book updates from major manufacturers. And we just picked anonymously 6 major manufacturers, labeled them A through F, and said, here's the number of price books per year each of those manufacturers put out. Varied from 2 to 3 a year. The more interesting part of this story is the next slide, though. For 2021, we looked at the number of updates from each of those same manufacturers by quarter. And if we flow through there, one in the first quarter, one in the second quarter, for most of them, one in the third quarter. Oh, this is back from 2019, sorry.
Yeah.
So let's get up to 2021 when the actual story happens.
Yeah.
So 2021 quarter 2 and quarter 3, this data was pulled towards the end of quarter 3. So we see 2 updates a quarter, and quarter 3, 1 already. And the last thing is what's going to happen in quarter 4. We know there's going to be more updates. We already see, we discuss it with major manufacturers, and we see more updates coming out. So this is just a time to sit back and think about what your dealership does to increase parts pricing or to keep up with inflation. I guess you could just escalate your prices a little bit, but it's always better to go back to the manufacturer and just say, hey, what are they suggesting now for suggested retail? And by the way, what am I paying? And make sure that we're making money off of the parts that are moving. Bob Clements and others will recommend you strategies to make sure that based on how fast your parts are turning, that you have an adequate profit margin to cover your costs. And it's doubly important now when some parts are hard to come by that we're actually pricing those where they need to be. Tim keeps us updated all the time with stuff off of Facebook and off his social media, dealers posting about crazy updates to retail prices. You just need to make sure that your dealer nets are up to date so that you make sure that you're on top of that.
Yeah, and we've got some more comments from the group that April kept the labor rates the same. Oh, this is going back to labor. Yeah, and there's some information on the parts pricing. Thank you guys for sharing that in the group. And it's interesting. That's a lot of really good information, Eric, and a lot of good, really good insight. And the point of this presentation was to not just throw a ton of data at you, but also to kind of say, well, what are some solutions for that? And based on what we've heard from dealers and what we've studied in the industry, we've come up with these top ones, and here they are. I mean, availability, everyone knows it's an issue, and people are afraid, reduced products means reduced profits, might not necessarily be exactly correct. Staying up to OEM pricing is an issue. New expectations of consumers, big one. Shopping from home, they want to shop from home. They want constant communication. Security of the data, we'll get into that a little bit, and employees, we'll talk a little about some of these things. But let's start off with and just take them one by one quickly, because we do have we have a little bit of time left, but we want to open it up for questions at the end here. But very simply, the concept of availability, what are the solutions for this? Well, Number one, make sure your inventory is accurate. If you don't do a rolling inventory, we recommend that you do a rolling inventory. Make sure that you have the right parts in stock. Parts location programs. We offer those now in our dealer management systems. These are being very, very well adopted. Dealers love this. We get a lot of positive feedback. Sometimes we roll things out and dealers go, that's great, but this one, locator is different. This is really helping dealers with their business, and it helps both ways, right, Eric? I mean, it helps you post obsolete inventory. It helps you find. It's a great tool to help you.
That's
So
right.
make them.
The tool is free out there, so you just need to
Yeah,
make sure that you're using it on both ends. Are you
yeah,
using it to search for parts when your traditional suppliers can't get something to you? Just go look at your dealer base. And I've even seen people at a counter just say, if somebody comes up to the counter and I don't have a part in stock and I can't get it immediately, help the customer out. Even if you don't want to buy it from a dealer, just find it and say, hey, 30 miles down the road, you can get it. The customer will appreciate you for that.
yeah. Yeah, and in the next year we'll be bringing OEMs on with that and aftermarket
Yep.
manufacturers too. So keep your eyes open for that. Um, are you cross-referencing your parts? We publish cross-reference manual or cross-reference guides. Those are fantastic tools to help you make the most of the inventory that you already have. We're updating those this month, so contact us and let us know if you'd like to subscribe to the cross-referencing guides that we offer too. But the big thing is, if we're having issues with one part of the business, let's pivot for profits. And the dealership of the future actively markets and sells service, and we just talked about that. And we just looked at the numbers, and we saw this chart. We saw that we're way down at the bottom here, folks. I mean, our units are going up and up in prices, but the labor rate's not going up. And the feedback from the group, and I've seen this again and again. I mean, if you ask for a higher labor rate and you're providing good service, you're going to get it. It's
So
almost a guarantee.
ton of good comments from the group on this.
Yeah.
South Carolina, 85 to 150 per hour for marine labor. Another person commented that they're charging they didn't change their labor rate, but they're charging an environmental fee,
Ah,
$5 environmental fee on every work order, so that to cover some of these fees that you're paying on the back end.
yeah. Yeah, absolutely. That's good comments. Um, Market conditions, it's staying up with OEM pricing. That we've seen it. We just saw this. And we know, like this week, we saw dealers posting on our forum that there's been two. That's not. We need to update that slide because it's not a question mark anymore. We've already had at least two more major updates from major brands, I think, just in the last week. So, and they're significant, not in terms of the frequency, but the dollar amount, like Eric was saying. So we don't see this changing anytime soon. So, the issue and the solution was really get on auto updating. We offer that. It's an easy way to stay up to date on the prices and make sure you have the most current locator services. We talked about that. Eventually, we'll be doing retail managed inventory solutions in partnership with your OEMs and with your providers, where they can basically create a stocking order for you based on your sales and send it directly to you. That'll help streamline and make things easier for you. And really, the dealership of the future, it's connected to a network, but it has up to date pricing, has up to date whole good pricing, so that you're staying accurate and keeping your margins where they
So
need to
Dave,
be.
we did
Yeah,
we did have a question here,
yeah,
while we're still on pricing and what the
sure.
average markup on parts pricing. I think it's not a across the board thing. I would rely on your manufacturer to give you suggested pricing and then work off of that. Maybe go a little above their suggested pricing.
Yeah,
But
absolutely.
on OEM parts, anywhere from 20 to 40%, and on aftermarket, and I'm not saying markup, I'm saying gross profit margin. So those are in the inverse of each other, but
Yeah,
that's like a math problem. But
yeah,
and then gross profit margin on aftermarket stuff, you should probably be getting 30 to 50%,
yeah,
depending on how fast the moving the item is.
yeah, yeah.
So
Good
Tim just
comment.
mentioned Bob Clements pushes a matrix with higher margin on smaller parts, which is a big deal. Yeah, and I think you'll generally see that from your manufacturer. If it's a high dollar part, you probably don't need to get over 20 or 25%. But if it's
Yeah,
low dollar and you're handling a bunch of them, you should be getting more.
Yeah.
Tim would have jumped in and said that himself, but his microphone's busted.
Yeah,
What's
yeah.
going on with that? Poor
I'm
Tim with the
sorry.
buster. That's got to be the worst for him. So again, new expectations of consumers. They want to shop from home. Everyone's gotten used to it. I don't think that that's going to change. None of us do. Constant communication. To them, the phone is for texting, right? Not for phone calls. Different generation, different consumer type, and even we, I'm part of this now too. I mean, if you look at the breakdown that Eric showed a little bit of, you see where the businesses grow. We saw that it went up 16%, but look at that number on internet sales. 700, 800% more, or 700 more than average, 800%. I mean, there's some unusual reasons for that force that number, but those aren't going away. So the solutions are, cultivate your leads, use your website, get out there, use e-commerce. There's companies that specialize in this, and they've done it for years. We're one of them. Solutions should always pay for themselves. I mean, getting more leads to you and helping you with your sales is what we're all about. And considering offer curbside pickup and drop off. If you haven't gotten into that yet, that's probably something that's going to stick around, folks. You need to really figure out a way to make that work for your dealership. And again,
Hey,
texting,
Dave,
messaging.
relevant to that curbside pickup and drop off.
Yeah.
Another person commented about they set up set rates for pickup
Oh
and
yeah,
delivery of a product. So another
that's
good idea
right.
there.
Yeah, well, we know manufacturers are looking at what should that be, and it's just like a flat rate for service. Now they're talking about, well, what should be the flat rate for delivery per mile and for pickup per mile. So it's affecting all of us. It really is. And again, dealership of the future, you finds and sells products to customers who might not even enter the store. And you might remember this guy and this product. If you haven't heard about Target CRM, um, Tim's probably going crazy
He's the
right
strong
now.
silent type today.
Right, yeah. Yeah, he'd love to talk about it, but he can't right now. Sorry, Tim. So, so going on to another one, to the security of data. Big issue. We've seen a lot of major multi-million dollar Bitcoin ransomware hacks. I mean, going every way from, Acer, the computer manufacturer, Colonial Pipeline, even the National Basketball Association, and a couple motorsports manufacturers too. Kia was held ransom for $20 million in Bitcoin, all sorts of crazy stuff. And we've had it happen to our own dealers here. We've had dealers report this directly to us. This is happening in our network, folks. So it's something to be aware of. So the solution is cloud, hosted, whatever you want to call it, virtual server. Get a plan for getting on it. We offer this. This is a great way to have your backups automated. It's a great way to keep secure. Also, employee training and awareness. What do your employees do when they get some weird looking email? Do they click on it? Do they even know what to do with it? And then what's the escalation path for that? If something weird comes in, go ahead.
And for heaven's sakes, if you're not ready to get on cloud, make sure that you've got a good backup. That is the number one,
Oh my, yeah.
thing as a safety from all of these issues that can attack you, is to just have a good backup. This is of your personal and your business stuff. But if you don't want to do that backup every day on your own, just get on cloud and let someone else worry about it. Someone we pay full time to do nothing but that.
Right, exactly. So, and that's exactly right. The dealership of the future, it's got a professional level security and administration and auto backup, and uses it. So, okay, so now we've talked all about data and facts, and we get to, the completely subjective part of it, which is employees. And again, if
5
you got
minutes.
feet, yeah, we've
5
all,
minutes.
oh my gosh. Okay, 5 minutes. Okay, so real quick, I'll roll through this, and um, I've had a really interesting experience with our kids here at home. We've got a big family. Long story short, I've been telling all of them, it's going to be really hard for you to go out and get a job. You got to go get a job, and all of them went out and had a different experience where. Um, instantly got hired. Everything that they looked at was online and was posted online. One son went out and they told him one day, you're going to get hired for 12 bucks. He went back the next day and they said, what did we promise you? 15? Oh, we'll split the difference and we'll give you 13. How does that sound? He got a raise his first day on the job. This picture is of one of our sons, applied online, went out, visited the place, got a job, and actually got paid and came back the same day. And that's the check that he got right there in his first day. So first day on the job and got a check the same day. So these are not the same times that we all grew up in. I certainly didn't. I know that no one else here did. So we've got a different type of employee. So, where do we find them and how do we keep them? And the solution is, what motivates these, right? Adequate pay, clear expectation, flexible hours. All these kids are going to school or going to college and taking college classes. They all like where they work and they'll stay at Ace Hardware, or they'll stay at the car rental place because they just have good employees, good people that work with them, and they get pizza for lunch every now and then. They want to learn something, they want to provide value, and they get a chance to do that. Where to find them? Local classifieds, onlines, apprenticeships, technical colleges. Two of these kids are enrolled in technical colleges that have an apprenticeship with an auto shop in the local area, so they could actually get college credits and go work it right afterwards. So dealership of the future is connected to community and nurtures good employees and finds them locally. And almost everything was posted online. Everything, the applications were all online, so they didn't even have to walk into the store to go fill out an application. So if you're not doing that, think about that. So here's a quick recap. We're not going to go through these because I'm running out of time, and also because this is going to be posted anyway. So if you want to take a look at it afterwards, you're certainly welcome to. But the last thing that we want to leave with is just a little discussion about broken windows. And this goes way back to a study that was done back in the early 60s about inner city crime and looking at two big cities, Berkeley versus New York, and broken windows and what effect did that have on people, and did it increase the crime rate? And of course it did. And so there's a big book about it. But again, I'll relate this to a personal story. We did a lot of work with 20 groups, and I've worked with 20 groups for a long time. And those are non-competitive dealers that get together 3 times a year for the purpose of sharing information. And they'll do it, they rotate them. And every dealer has a turn of hosting it. And part of that meeting is they'll bring the entire 20 group out of these dealers and visit one of the dealerships in the hosting city. So we were there one time, and this dealer, who was all prepared for it, had new signage, repaved the parking lot, did some creative things, moved the accessories around in front of the service department. So I got to walk by the accessories and the apparel and the new units before I get to service, and did a ton of work. Well, the 20 group shows up, and the first thing they say is, "Hey, Bob, everything looks great in the front, but what's going on with that building over there?" Well, it was the dealer's warehouse where they kept all the created units. It had broken windows all over it, weeds growing up everywhere, and it just looked really bad. And it was a total contrast to what the dealer considered the dealership. Well, the owner was walking in the back of the store every day, not in the front. Didn't really know what it looked like from the front, or hadn't really thought it, because we all see what we want to see a lot. So um, it was just a really interesting psychological study, that I'll never forget, because everyone's got broken windows. Where are yours? You're your best secret shopper. You might want to take a look at your store from the front of the dealership, like a consumer. Walk in from the front door. And what does your dealership look like online? That's a big deal now too. What does your virtual presence look like? Because someone might not come to your store to actually take a look at it. They might just be looking and shopping you online. And and can your dealership, can you call them and schedule service? What is that experience like? I mean, you can be your own best secret shopper. Try to buy a part online, or try to check availability online, or have one of your friends call your own dealership and see, what is that experience like, and give you some feedback. I think you might learn some very interesting things, because everyone's got broken windows. We walk past them every day. Your broken window might even be a person there who's dragging things down that you're just not even thinking about. So um, we just wanted to open up, your ideas, your mind to that. Find those broken windows. We look forward to seeing you in the future. And again, please sign up for our market updates. We'd love to have you there and love to provide updates to you. And that is it. So I've taken up all of our time, except for, I guess, about 5 minutes for some Q&A. So please, are there questions that we
So,
have? I can go back to looking in the chat
so
room now.
someone brought up where to find the parts locator in Aspen, and it is not in Aspen yet. That's coming shortly.
Right.
I don't know exactly when the schedule is for that, but they're working on it.
Yep. Yeah, great.
More comments about shop supply fees. one dealership tracked environmental fees. In 2020, they collected $30,000 of environmental fees.
Wow.
That would
That's nice.
make a dent in your profit margins.
Right.
Okay. Tim says Q1 for Aspen.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, that's great.
Oh yeah,
Well,
I see that.
Yeah.
All right, guys, I hate to be the bearer of bad news here. I think we're going to have to wrap up, though. We do have another session starting in about 5 minutes.
All right. Well,
Yes.
thanks so much. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, I just want to say on behalf of the team, thank you everybody who attended, and Dave, Eric, Tim, Don, thank you guys so much for the presentation. We will be, as Dave mentioned, attaching the presentation to the agenda. So if you have any questions or you want to go back and review the presentation, you're more than welcome to. If we didn't get a chance to answer any of your questions today, we'll make sure that someone reaches out to you to follow up. But with that, thanks everybody. We'll see you in about 5 minutes for the session with Gravity.
The future.
All
All right.
Take care.
See you all. Thanks so much. Bye.
Thanks, guys.